So hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the at Surrey Dietetics Let's Into Live Chat and series Dietitians Week specials. And my name is Long Lee and I am a lecturer in dietetics at the University of Surrey. And so this evening I've got two guests with me and I'm very glad to have them with me actually. And so on my screen on my left is Anya Bricknell and on my right is Francesca Allsop, and I will introduce them properly in 1 minute. But thank you so much, guys, for taking the time and joining the chat. And so first, let's introduce you, Anya. So Anya has worked in the NHS since she graduated and has worked in a range of clinical areas, specialising in the fields of bariatric surgery and learning disability dietetics. She transitioned to higher education in 2021 after having been a student trainer in a number of clinical roles. She continues to do some clinical work while also studying for her master's degree. And Anya also works with me. She's an absolutely amazing dietitian. And on my right is Francesca. So Fran also is a registered dietitian with clinical experience working across acute hospital wards, oncology outpatients, and more recently, prison health. She's also known as the prison dietitian on social media. She is a part-time lecturer in nutrition and dietetics at Wrexham University in North Wales. Fran took up this academic role in August 2022 and is helping develop the 3-year degree program. She teaches our modules to include professional practice, dietetic practice, and food, nutrition, and behaviour. So a warm welcome to you too. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Can you tell me a bit more about how you started your journey, your professional journey? Shall we start with you, Anya?
Yeah, we can start off. So, well, like Long said, I started off in clinical dietetics. So I did my graduates and then did a lot of rotational band 5 work, did some kind of acting up into band 6, 7 roles for a while. So got to try a little bit of everything for a while, which was lovely. And then I specialised in bariatric surgery, so went to work in a specialist unit for that, did that for a few years, and then did an entire swap and moved from outpatient and inpatient bariatrics to community-based learning disability, dysphagia and forensics. So that was a big swap, and then made the transition into higher education from there. So I'd done student training lead in bariatrics at Homerton and in the LD services as well, where we did the first ever mental health placement for our local hospital, which was our local university, which was quite fun. And then kind of made the switch over to teaching from there. So it was kind of a gradual shift, kind of trying out new things with training students on placement and just getting more and more embedded into that education side of things.
Absolutely. And Anya and I actually joined the University of Surrey at the same time. And I just remember bumped into Anya outside HR and said, oh, we started today. And so it's quite fresh in my memory. And I have to say, Anya, usually I'm quite, so clinically, the acute side, so I know quite a range of specialities. Apart from or except bariatric and learning disability and mental health. So I think that's a really good compliment. And in terms of our speciality, and I think I certainly can learn more from Anya about bariatrics and mental health. And then, coincidentally, Fran is actually, you are going to work in mental health as well, but from there, and can you just tell us a bit more about your professional journey then?
Yeah, so I feel that mine's been a little bit more of a whirlwind. I think the issue with me is I can't really settle. So I like to experience something for a period of time and then move on. So my background was the general band 5 rotations, did surgery, gastro and stroke as part of those rotations, very acute heavy. And then from there I got a surgical band 6 job, and alongside I decided to take a leap of faith and go and work at Wrexham Prison, which I did for 2.5 years part-time. So alongside that, I was doing my surgical band 6. Then I got a bit bored of surgery, so decided to move over to oncology. So worked in head and neck cancer for about 11 months in the radiotherapy clinics. And then that fixed term contract was coming to an end. So Wrexham University were advertising a job at the time, which feels like a lifetime ago, but it's not even a year now. And I took that leap and decided to move into lecturing part-time to give it a go to see if I liked it. And here I am, almost a year later, still enjoying it, still here. So it's a good sign. And as you write along, I'll be taking up a mental health, learning disability post 3 days a week alongside this, hopefully start date soon.
Yeah, and good luck with that.
Thank you.
So actually, I just find out, so both of you have or will be working in mental health. So I didn't plan that, everybody. And, but that's good. And at this moment, so both of you are working at the university part-time and still work in the NHS as well. So obviously you've got two hats, one in the NHS and one in the higher education. Can you talk a bit more about it? How do you feel about it, especially of what's the difference, do you think, between the two?
I'll start on this one. I think the main difference for me is the expectations of both are completely worlds apart. I think that there's a lot more autonomy in a lecturing post, and you're kind of left to get on with it and to manage your own time, whereas I feel like the NHS is slightly more micromanaged and people are tracking your performance and what you're up to. So that's been the biggest thing for me. The hardest thing for me, and I don't know about you, Anya, is just the time management and taking one hat off and, yes, I'm lecturer today, don't talk to me about the NHS, and then the other way around when you're in your other job.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, I think lots of people find that if they're doing 2 part-time jobs, it's just that 2 part-time jobs doesn't make 1 full-time job. It makes 1 full-time job plus a bit. And so you're trying to be extra efficient all of the time. I think definitely across both, for sure. Yeah, that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges I found. I think whether the other things I found was again, you might have found the same thing, or not, but like outcomes measurement is very different. Like, you kind of do a day of clinical work, and you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I saw this many patients today. You know, these people are getting better. You know, I've had these, and that makes you feel good. Like, that's a good day's work, and you've done a good outcome. But student work is much more like long term. So you're kind of day to day. Oh, I spent an hour in front of the computer today, or I spent a whole day in front of the computer today. But you're not getting that same kind of like outcomes focus. Yeah. The different way of kind of finding your satisfaction within your job is quite different.
Yeah.
Like NHS.
Completely agree. And I find that my days absolutely fly by when I'm at the university, but I don't really know what I've done by the end of the day. Does that make sense to you both?
Yeah. Like, you're working on something big, but you haven't finished it by the end of the day. Whereas if you're like treating a patient, you're like, yeah, okay, 3 hours. I'm, you know, the most complex patient I've ever seen, and yeah, they're done. They're still done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think after Anna, you were being quite diplomatic there. Just a full-time job and a bit, probably more than a bit, I would like to say. And actually, I was quite glad I changed to university full-time, so I only had to focus on one thing, and so both of you actually have to focus on 2 things, and I think that's even more challenging. And so then back to the higher education. Obviously, Anna, you mentioned you were doing the student training in your NS job, and Fran, your contract was coming to an end. Then Wrexham University were hiring a lecturer, and so I'm just wondering, from both of your side, what sparked your interest in higher education?
I can start with this one, Fran. Yeah. I think, looking back, I think I actually started having an interest in higher education while I was still a student. I just don't think I really noticed it much at the time. I think I had some lovely experiences, but I also had some terrible experiences on placement, as lots of people do. And I think one of the things I left with being like, I am never, ever going to treat a student like that on placement, ever. I don't want anyone to have that experience that I had. And so partly my protective element was like, well, if I'm the one doing the teaching, then I know it won't happen to other people. So I think that was one element of kind of, I was interested in kind of that side of things. And I love education. Like, I love doing like working with patient groups and organising curriculums from that point of view. So this was just kind of another aspect to that kind of educational and learning and teaching approach, just with students instead of with patients. So that was kind of where I started from. Maybe it's quite egotistical, but I liked talking in front of a classroom of people, so that worked for me. And then just as you progress kind of within different clinical roles and things like that, it was just having more opportunity to do the student work. So they needed like a deputy lead, so I got to learn from a lead, and then, you know, they went away and we had someone else, and then I changed jobs and got to do some do grassroots work and kind of set it up from nothing and work with my managers in the university on that. So it just kind of was a natural progression of taking a bit more responsibility and a bit more responsibility, kind of knowing that that was actually what I was really enjoying. And so like the process of doing things like supervision and yearly outcomes, and being like, what do I want to do with my job over the next year? That feeds into what do you want to do with your career over your lifetime. And so it helped me kind of learn the different things that I liked and what I really enjoyed doing as my job. And actually, as the clinical situation changes, that makes you kind of explore other options, as it were, or think about where you want to be long term. And so that kind of led me into going, actually, I'll give it a go. I'll see what happens. So that was kind of my journey. I think it was a slow burn, kind of one of those things that you have in the back of your mind. It's like, oh, that would be really fun, like one day. And then suddenly it is one day, and you're doing it.
And I quite like what you said. You weren't happy with how you were sort of taught in a way, and to change it, you just become the one who do it. So I think that's absolutely great. And what about you, Fran?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I had a similar experience on one of my placements. I really, really struggled, and I thought about just quitting and not being a dietitian because everything about it was not good. And that was a real moment for me of thinking I could do a better job than this. And I know that sounds really, out there, but I think, compassionate leadership is what some professions and some people within the profession are lacking, or not necessarily lacking, but more they're just so busy that they can't provide the time for it. Mine was a little bit of a quicker journey into higher education. It was very much, there was a job advertised a mile from my house, and I thought, now or never, let's have a go, let's see what it's like. I think there's an element, though, of my prison dietetic job coming into it where I really wanted to do research because it's an evidence base that doesn't exist at the moment, and I really wanted to develop that, but not having the skills to do that, and having to reflect back on my first undergrad degree and dissertation years ago and try to figure out how to do it. So moving into higher education has helped me to develop that, and I'm now about to publish my first ever piece of academic writing, and for a year in. So I think that's what's drawn me to it more than anything, getting that support to continue to develop.
Excellent. That's absolutely excellent. And everybody, I have to say, unlike Anya's or Fran's, I did have a good experience at university, and the lecturers at that time did inspire me to want to be a lecturer. So I had always wanted to be a lecturer in dietetics when I was a student, although it did take me quite some time to achieve that. But we all get here, don't we? And I'm so glad to hear, Fran, you are going to publish your study in prison, prison dietetics very soon. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, so I've been doing a systematic review on nutritional interventions within prisons, which didn't take all that long because there really aren't any. So there's about 5 studies that are of any decent quality that have been published globally, nothing in the UK. So I've been collating that evidence and slowly and surely writing about it. And yeah, so submitted it now for peer review. So fingers crossed it comes back and we can get it published.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know it's the first time I've ever been through this process, but apparently sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's not.
Absolutely. And I know, Anya, this afternoon you did some of the research focus group as well, didn't you? And would you like to share some of it, or is that still
about some of the research that we're doing? Yeah, can do. We're doing some research on our students, but then we are looking into how we teach dietetic students. So there are some things that we do at Surrey that we think are quite interesting, or maybe other places do something like it, but we do it in a particular kind of way. So things like using the simulation centre, things like doing our public health placements. We call it Be Your Best, where it's like a children's and families intervention for weight management programme, and our students run that. And so we are kind of trying to establish in like a research focused way how useful it is for students and what they get out of it and how we can improve it. The idea of publishing it later on just so everyone else knows, kind of like, hey, we do this thing, it works really well, or hey, we do this thing, don't try it, it doesn't work. So just kind of helping to inform the evidence base from a training point of view. So we're hopefully going to have some results for that by the end of the summer. And thank you to all our students who took part in all of the questionnaires I've been sending them for the last month.
And everybody, if you haven't completed yet, please do. And and so just another question is, I know some dietitians, they probably want to be a lecturer in dietetics or want to move to higher education. What kind of qualification and or experiences do you think are important to make this move?
I think for me, a lot of the service development opportunities I've had have helped me get this post, especially given that we're a brand new course to North Wales. So we're developing the 3-year programme as we go. So I think that was my biggest sales pitch. But on top of that, I've been enrolled into a PGCE. I know a lot of universities require that before you start, but I'm in a lucky position that I'm on it whilst I'm teaching. And things like presentation skills, communication skills, having students with you, and experience of students that have done really well and students that have been struggling and what you've done to support them. So that's really the basic. But for me, I think just being a dietitian and being passionate is enough to get this job. You just have to sell why you love being a dietitian and why you're going to teach students how to love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what about you, Anya?
I think much the same things. I think taking the opportunities while you can, like almost every dietitian sees students in one way or another. So it's seizing those opportunities to just have a go at supporting a student kind of one-on-one and just see how you do with it, and do you enjoy it, and is it helpful, and is it good for the student. I think making connections with your training university, so wherever you are, what their main provider is helpful. Like my local university, they didn't do any teaching on learning disabilities, and then we had a student come and do a placement. They went back to the university and said, we need to be taught this. So, but because they knew me, they were like, right, you come teach this. So that's like it's having those links, and then it helps you build a few of those opportunities, even if it's just like a 1-hour lecture at some point, or going to help with the interviews, or giving them like a hand with designing a case study or something like that. If they're looking for the help and you're interested, do it if you can, because then it gives you that little bit more understanding of what it would be like if you were going to do this full time, and it looks good on a CV later as well. So having those like little bits and pieces that they all add up in the end.
Absolutely. And I reflecting on my own experience. Sorry, everybody, I just jump in again with my own opinion. My own story is, I think being a student lead and participating in student training is another very good way as well, because obviously you were involved in clinical training, clinical teaching. And so that's where your teaching experience comes in, because they normally will ask for teaching experiences. And also, I think many people in the NHS, they deliver group education to either the healthcare professionals or to patients. That's teaching experience as well. So I think exactly as Anya said, many of these universities, your linking universities will ask for either to support with a teaching or to support with their role plays, for example. So all those are, I think, good experiences to build up the relationship and to gain experience. So I think that's absolutely another very good way. So excellent. Yeah.
One other thing as well on that, I think, is that sometimes people feel like they have to be an expert in something before they go into education. Like you have to have been like a band 7 in a particular area and be like an expert in that thing. And like that's useful if you can teach a specialist subject. But I think actually when you're thinking about what you're going to be teaching on a day-to-day basis, it's general skills that can see you all the way through. So like, I'm a bariatric or a learning disability specialist, but I've not done either of those for more than 2 years. So it's kind of actually you can, if you've got general understanding of everything and all these different areas, that is just as valuable. And you always have the ability to learn other things and teach other specialties with your own CPD over time. So don't discount yourself just because you're not the leading expert in a particular thing in the country. There's still lots of applicable experiences and things that you can bring.
Yeah,
that's brilliant advice.
Anything you'd like to add there, Fran?
I just completely agree. I think I felt like that applying. I felt that I was quite an imposter and that I didn't deserve to be a lecturer because I hadn't got, the breadth of experience that some of my colleagues on on the team have, but actually you're right, it's those general skills and that teaching the basics that you really need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have touched on this a little bit in our previous conversation. It's just, as we know that Anna, you said it's really busy and juggling between the two jobs. How do you organize your time to be highly efficient?
Get really good at planning your Outlook calendar. Long will say mine is terrifying, but I get everything done. So, but I think that's a flippant point, but it does help, like having an organized plan of how you're going to factor everything in, and going that actually like done is better than perfect a lot of the time. So sometimes you just need to get something done to meet a deadline or get there, and that's okay. And having planning in that time for yourself as well. So like, even though, I mean, I'm sure it's the same for you, Fran, it's marking season at the moment, so you know everything is all over the place, but like planning in a bit of time to just like be like, actually I'm not going to think about marking essays for the next 2 hours, or just to kind of keep your brain functioning is a good part of that. But having strict boundaries with things, like I'm lucky in the sense that my NHS job is bank, so it's 0-hour contracts, so at times I can say like, actually no, I can't, I'm just going to like take this time off or use my annual leave in order to fit things around so I don't explode. So that gives me a bit of nice flexibility kind of with that, which if I was doing 2 kind of set jobs, I think it would maybe be a bit hard.
Yeah, I don't think I've figured it out yet, is my real answer. I am better than I was a year ago when I started doing this. I've had 2 jobs now for a while, but they've always been within the NHS, so you just balance them. Whereas the lecturing never feels like it switches off. It always feels like there's something to do. So for me, it's just about being really strict and saying, these are my working days, and I will do what I can in those days, and I will get back to you on those days only. And I think it's hard to learn to do that, but I'm getting there.
I see. Find that really, sorry, Anya.
I think having those boundaries is really important. I think when I first started, I was really strict with the boundaries, and now I am definitely less so. But I find that it takes over my brain much more. So actually, one of my jobs for the summer is to get really strict with the boundaries again. Going, actually, no, I'm not looking at emails. I'm not turning my laptop on. I'm not doing this. So it does kind of get into your brain in the same way, I think because you're working on long-term projects.
Yeah. So
you're always in the back of your mind, like you have a great idea when you're lying back, going to sleep in the middle of the night, and you're like, oh, yes, that's how we teach this. And then you're like, no, just sleep. It's like, you don't have that when you're trying to you're always mulling over, how am I going to solve this problem or teach this thing? And things will come to you at various times, and it's hard to switch that off, I think.
Absolutely, and I think boundary is so important, which I absolutely have no boundaries. I think I just switch on my computer at all times as I wish. But I think, as Annie exactly said, when you finish, don't think about it. And although it's really hard, and everybody, I'm fortunate enough to actually view Anya's Outlook calendar, and I tell you, it's highly organized, everybody, to probably every 30 minutes what the task is. And if you look at my Outlook calendar, it's just free. Not as in I'm free, but free as in I don't plan exactly as how Anya does things, which I actually think, I really want to learn from Anya about it. And I tried actually before, it didn't work, but maybe I should try again. But having said that, apart from those sort of balancing work and life and anything else you find more challenging than you expected in higher education, as in before you joined higher education, you didn't expect that, but now you find it quite challenging?
I think for me, what I have really been shocked by is how long it takes to plan a session and the logistics of planning a session. You might only have an hour or 2 to teach, but that takes hours to plan and to do it well. There have been times that you've rushed through and you've planned something quickly, and it's just never as good as you want it to be. And I don't think I realised what goes on behind the scenes when I was a student. I think that I just thought, oh, they're turning up and they're teaching what they know without realising how long it takes for them to teach what they know. So that's what's probably shocked me about higher education.
Yeah, I think similarly, I think I found that same thing. I think another aspect was maybe the amount of an emotional roller coaster it is sometimes. I think because it sounds like you're doing a lot of the same thing every day. You're planning, teaching, and going to meetings and things, and that sounds very samey. But actually, like, it's maybe related to the outcomes thing that I was talking about earlier, about having that kind of slow burn on getting outcomes rather than kind of immediate feedback from students, but from patients. But it's like, you have a good session, a good teaching session, and everyone's talking and everyone's loving it and everyone's engaged, and you like leave work feeling like you're absolutely on top of the world. And then the next day something will happen and you'll absolutely bomb it back down again. And I don't think I really expected that from such a kind of long-term planning kind of job. Yes, with patients, you're feeling great one day, but that's because patients change absolutely every single day. Whereas the student kind of journey and the model that we're teaching at university doesn't do that. So I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be so much of a roller coaster, I think. Kind of on a...
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think I realised how emotionally invested I would be in how well the students do. I'm behind the laptop really rooting for them, and they don't know that I'm doing that. It can be really hard when they're not doing as well as you want them to.
Yeah, I find the same thing. We did like simulation sessions in our ward, so you can pull the curtains round, so the students are having a lovely chat with our our pretend patients or whichever, and I'm standing there behind the curtain listening to them going, yes, good in, I'm really proud of them, but they don't see that background.
Yeah, it's such a rewarding, I think, experience to see students' progress and their evolution, really. And I think you can, I've only been in university for 2 years, but then seeing how they progress, let's say from year one to the final year, or even after they finish the placement, and you can see a clear difference between when they started and now. I think that's such an rewarding experience. And I think, to me, the unexpected challenge probably is the admin, and the amount of admin at university, everybody is I don't even want to mention it. It's I think in the NHS we are complaining about, we've got so much admin we need to do, but hello everybody, come to university, you realise the admin in the NHS is actually not too bad. And I think exactly as you said, Fran, is how much time we spent in planning a session, not just hours, probably sometimes days, for just one session to, for it to run well, and also like timetabling, for example. So we have already submitted our timetabling already, haven't we, Anya? And so that's for even August and September timetable we submitted in May. So everybody look at how in advance we have to plan things. So I think those things behind the scenes people probably haven't really realized. But anything that you find you really enjoy, actually, that you didn't expect you would enjoy as much?
I think my thing that I maybe didn't realise I would enjoy quite as much is the idea of project management. One of the reasons I wanted to go into education was that the next kind of natural career progression within the NHS was management stuff, and I wasn't really that interested in doing that. So actually, but doing this, you can really get your teeth into a really good project. And yes, it takes 6 months to get something off the ground or to see it, but then having all the creativity that comes with planning everything out and going, oh, maybe if we do this or do that, and what do you think about this, and then actually sitting down and making it happen and then seeing it happen is such a good process. I didn't realise how much I would enjoy doing that. And I know that a lot of that is admin, and some of us are maybe more inclined towards admin than others, but it's the kind of the creativity that comes with that, of kind of just seeing a project from beginning to end. With some of the learning activities we've done, we've just finished doing something called a curriculum design review, where we kind of rehash the whole curriculum for the whole programme, and is thinking about how do we do that. And now, aren't we long, we're just about to go into the first year of that kind of new redesign of how it's going to happen. So it's nice to see that long-term project and play around with things and see how it goes and be really creative. I don't think I expected it to be so creative in an admin-y way.
I agree. I don't think I expected that I'd be able to put my own stamp on so much. And I wouldn't describe myself as creative, but you have to be, don't you, in this role? I think for me, the thing that I've really enjoyed that I didn't expect to enjoy so much is actually the MDT element of it. So I'm really lucky at Wrexham to be part of quite a big allied health team. So I teach on my professional practice module alongside with speech and language therapy students, and we get occupational therapy students in as well. And that's really, really nice because that's an experience that I didn't have at university. So for me, it's just great to be able to build those skills and learn what people do so early on.
Absolutely, and I think that interprofessional learning is quite important, isn't it? And I think we are advocating for even more at the university level, and even I think the BDA curriculum and even the HCPC ask for more of those interprofessional learning experiences. So it's so good to hear that you've got so much AHPs in your university, and that's absolutely wonderful. And I think even for me, the most enjoyable thing probably just to see the students react to your teaching and sort of all enjoyed your teaching and feed that back to you, see how they enjoyed it. I think that's actually another very rewarding experience. And but I can totally resonate with what you two said. And I think, Anya, you said project management because you're highly organized. Probably, I think that's your attributes to for a good project manager, I guess. And I think I definitely know. And sometimes I think when we plan things, it's almost like a plan and a test if it works. And then we redesign again and see if it works. It's almost like it's always changing. So I think sometimes when people say, oh, you can just use the slides from, I don't know, last year or the year before, but actually in reality it doesn't really work like that, does it? Because you have to change it based on the teaching experience, the student feedback, etc., etc. And so obviously, do you think it is still quite important for a university lecturer to still have an NHS role?
Sorry, I'm going to have to leave, I'm afraid, everybody. So I will leave Fran to answer this question. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
nice
Anya,
to meet
for
you,
joining
Anya.
us
Take
today.
Care.
Yes, so Anya's got other commitments. But thanks so much for Anya to join our chat. But Fran will stay with us and we'll finish this chat. And have a lovely evening, Anya.
Thank you.
See you later.
I just have to work out how to leave. Just ignore me for a second.
That's okay.
Yes, so Fran, what do you think?
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings on this question because I think as a student I really appreciated dietitians that still worked in practice. But now I am a dietitian that works in practice, and trying to juggle both is really hard. I do think there's definitely an element of you need to have done the job to teach the job. But whether you still need to be in clinical practice whilst teaching, I don't know. What do you think?
I think, well, initially, I think it didn't matter, but I think probably that at that time, my clinical experience were quite fresh still. But then obviously I keep up to date with what's happening by attending those conferences, by joining BDA specialist groups. So my clinical practice and my knowledge, I'm still doing projects with the NHS, for example. So I think that's probably still quite good. So I think if for a dietitian, if they don't work in the NHS anymore, they have to think of a way to keep up with the clinical side, whether it's to see private patients or to be together with the clinical specialist group, etc., or doing projects. And there must be a way for them to keep up to date with the clinical practice. That's my own, that's how I think, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think you're very good at doing that. You're at every single conference going.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have noticed or have witnessed, basically every time I go to the conferences, I network as well. And if I sort of think this speaker is really good, I always say, can you come and teach my students? And because I know quite a few of the dietitians left comments on my Twitter saying they actually saw me doing that. And I was like, yes, because why not?
Yeah. It's an opportunity. You've got to. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fran, obviously you won the Clinical Nutrition Professional of the Year CN Award last year. Congratulations. What did you have to do to win that award?
I don't know. People just voted for me. I think a lot of it was raising the profile of dietitians within prisons is what got me the job. Not the job, the award. I did quite a few podcasts. I wrote in a lot of the magazines. I'm very active on social media, as you know. So I think that's probably what scooped it for me. But huge shock that I was ever nominated in the first place, because I've not been a dietitian for that long. So again, complete imposter syndrome in everything that I do.
That's so great. And everybody, I've been nominated for Social Media Personality of the Year, CN
Vote
Award.
for Long.
So vote for Lonely, please. I was just wondering when I can plug this in. So I finally
Plug it now.
So that's really good. And so looking back on your experiences so far, what do you think are your key takeaways or lessons learned?
This one might be controversial, but I was thinking about this. My key take home so far is to be friendly with your students, but not to befriend them. I know, controversial, but what I've found is that I've probably gone into Fran mode and tried to become best friends with everybody. And then when it comes to marking or giving constructive feedback, I've then found it really, really hard, because I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I know that I have to put my lecturer hat on and, you know, give them the feedback that they need to develop and become the dietitians that they will be, and they'll be brilliant. But it's the baby steps towards that. So I think that's my key take home at the moment. You know, be friendly, but try not to be best friends with everybody. So again, learning curve for me. What do you think yours are?
Mine, I'm just trying. I think it's, instead of the professional, I think it's still the same as professional boundaries, but it's different to, you know, with students, is with work. I think it's really difficult for people to work in higher education to switch off, well, from my point of view.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite important to actually to switch off and really have that work-life balance. And I'm still learning, and I'm a terrible learner on this subjects. But I think that's probably something I learned really need to manage, the work-life balance. But I know exactly what you mean by be friendly with the students, and I think that's another boundary as well, isn't it? And another kind of professional boundary.
Yeah.
I think I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And it's nothing you've ever had to learn before being a dietitian in practice, because you don't become friends and get to know your patients particularly well. I mean, I suppose community dietitians do, or people that follow patients for a long period of time, but it's very different when you know you've got somebody for a couple of years that you want to get to know and you want to help them learn and develop, but also, you know, realizing that actually you're the senior one in this and that you're there to teach them as well. Again, imposter.
Yeah, I think, let me know how you get on next year, and how you mastered being friendly, but not the best friends, and that's hard actually. And so looking forward, what ambitions do you have in higher education?
So for me, higher education is the opportunity to develop from a research perspective. As I said earlier, I'm about to publish this systematic review, and then we've already got plans in progress. I'm working with a lecturer from Birmingham City University. She leads their master's programme in dietetics. I'm working with her to do interviews on dietitians that work in prison environments to find out what their barriers are and what we can do to encourage more people into the profession, and into these niche areas of the profession that are underrepresented. So that's the way I want to go. If the university asks me, the way I want to go is to do more study, because they always want more study out of you. I have enrolled onto the PGCE, so that will start in September. I've done a module in just basics of higher education already, which was only a 20 credit module, but it's a beginner's guide too. And then after that, the university will tell me to do a PhD, but I'm not sure I'm ready as of yet.
Yes, I think the good part of working in the university is, if you like research, for example, I think university is really good one. And I think so one thing is, obviously you're in North Wales and I am in England, and I think for many of those NHS Trust, the dietitians, if you don't have time to analyze your data, you can always collaborate with the university. And because obviously as the university, we need student dissertations, student projects, and it's always a good one to share that data anonymously. And the student can always analyze it. So it's always like a win-win situation of we have the chance to do research, and you have the chance to have your data analyzed. And I think I don't know about your contract, Fran. So my contract with the University of Surrey is I focus on teaching, so I don't have research responsibilities, as in like I don't have KPI for research. I don't know about you. So my main thing is to teach, and obviously now we are advocating for more pedagogic research, so which is to focus on dietetic education. And but I think being able to do research is actually quite enjoyable. Without having that KPI, I think.
Yeah, ours is very much similar, where it's teaching is the main focus, but we get 11 days scholarly leave per year. So I can dedicate 11 days purely to whatever sparks my interest, as long as I say I'm working towards a project of some description. But
that's really good.
11 days is probably not enough.
That's really good. University of Surrey, if you're watching this live chat, please take that into consideration. And because we'll have two different types of contract for academics. But anyway, that's not about it. And so any other dream do you have in either in higher education or in the NHS?
I think for me, it's still important to raise the profile of dietitians, and that we're all so different and we don't fit into this box. A lot of people are very shocked when they talk to me and they find out I'm a dietitian, because they think, well, you've got purple hair, you've got your nose pierced, you've got tattoos, you don't fit the normal stereotype. And I don't feel that I fit the normal lecturer stereotype either. So it's trying to break those barriers and tell people that we're here and that anyone can teach, anyone can be a dietitian. You've just got to be passionate about your subject. So that's the long-term goal. Tell people how great the career is and get more people in, but interesting people in, and people that you wouldn't necessarily see. I'm a bit more representative of the populations in the areas that some of us grew up in. But dreams-wise, I don't know. I'm still really early into my career. For me, it's about just experiencing new things constantly, and maybe one day I'll settle. But right now, probably not. I like to jump around.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about raising dietetic profile, and obviously you are quite active on social media. And I think what I really like about your social media content is you give a story, and so obviously on Twitter you regularly share of what you did in the prison with different patients, and it's quite it's anonymous, but I think it's very good. You actually demonstrated of how you made a difference to the patient's health. So I think that's really good. Any other sort of tips or advice you would like to give to students or to dietitians to raise their profile?
Yeah, so I think don't be scared of social media is the first one. Obviously, you've got to keep things anonymous and work within those HCPC guidelines, but adding as many people, dietitians, on social media as you possibly can, and networking with them and finding out what they're doing, going to study days is really important. I don't know if you agree, Long, I feel like I know loads of dietitians just from following them and their accounts for years, even though I've never met them in real life. And then you go to a study day and you meet someone and you're like, I know who you are, but you might not know who I am. And often you both know it. But I think social media is wonderful and we need to use it properly. And there's so much bad information on social media. It's important that we all raise our profiles and tell the world what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I, we met in person in the oncology study day, didn't we? But before that, we had sort of interacted on social media already. So I think it's really good is you didn't feel like I haven't met you before. I feel like I've met you before. So I think it's really easy to catch up if you have established So some interaction with
And
people on social media.
I felt like that when I went down to the CN Awards. I walked in and Sophie Medlin was there, and I know her, but I didn't know her, and we gave each other a hug like we knew each other for years. It was lovely. And the same with Nusrat as well. You know, there's a lot of people. It's just, there are so many people in this profession doing good things, and if we can all jump on that bandwagon and be one of those, we're going to make huge changes in this world.
Absolutely, and I cannot believe I haven't met Sophie Medlin in person yet, because I feel like I've met everybody in person. But one day I will meet her, because she joined our chat yesterday. Yeah. I've got a question here. Is any advice for Band 5s? How do we explore the different options out there and pinpoint something we can excel in?
So I think my first piece of advice there is, don't feel that you've got to pinpoint what you're going to excel in just yet. You know, get yourself a job with a rotation of multiple things that you're interested in. From a placement perspective, while you're still a student, see if you can get a variety of placements rather than just being in the one place. I think there's a lot of pressure to find out what you're going to do and what you'll become a Band 6 in quite quickly. And we should take that pressure off and just enjoy the journey and pick up new skills as you go along, and don't feel that you have to pigeonhole yourself too early. So that's probably not the advice you were wanting, but
I actually
don't do it, enjoy it.
I actually agree with you, Fran. I think I know some students, some people, they know what they want to do. And then I think that's great. And if they know exactly what they want to do, they just need to work towards that. And then some people, they don't. And I think in that way, exactly as you said, find like a rotational job. And so you can explore different areas. And exactly as you did, Fran, you said you did quite different areas. And even like, when you were doing locoming, it's different things as well. And I think after trying so many things, I think you can then realize what you are good at. And then probably...
And I think there's definitely an element in, you think that you know what you want, but you don't really until you try something. You know, I didn't know that I was going to absolutely adore the prison. I thought, I'll have a go at this. And I loved it. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And the experiences I've got from that are, you know, something that I will never be able to replicate again. So don't write something off because you think you might not be interested. Definitely go and see it and have a go.
Absolutely. And everybody, if you're watching this, if you have any questions, please do and type the question. The live chat will end very soon. And when do you start your new job, Fran?
It's a great question. How long's a piece of string? I think what's blown my mind is that I've worked now for the NHS for years, and that every single new trust that you go into, you have to prove your right to work in the UK again. You have to go through occupational health again. And you have to do references again. So fingers crossed soon. I'm hoping July.
Yeah. And what's your new job again?
So mental health dietitian in a mental health inpatient facility. Down in Shrewsbury, so I'll be back over the border in NHS England.
Excellent, and I think we definitely need more dietitians to specialise in mental health. It's definitely an area that I think dietitians can play a very important role in improving patients' care and patient outcomes as well. So I really look forward to your new journey, Fran, and then see what you will share with us. Those clinical
Don't worry,
stories.
I'll pick some good ones for you.
I always love the clinical stories. And have you enjoyed this chat, Fran, today?
I have, yeah. It's been really nice. It's lovely, isn't it, to be able to share what you do?
Absolutely. And I think it's very good, because we do normally hear from dietitians working in higher education, and certainly I didn't hear much about this type of stories, and so it's really good to know things that behind the scene. I think that's really good. So thank you so much for coming. Any final advice or tips you would like to give to dietitians or student dietitians who want to perhaps pursue a career in higher education or even just education?
Yeah, I think that anybody can do it. Don't think that you have to have the best grades in the world to work in higher education. Don't think that you have to be specialists in anything to work in higher education. anyone can do it as long as you're passionate about supporting your students on their journey, and that you know how to seek help if you need it. It's a really supportive team in higher education. There's people that have been doing it for 30, 40 years, and there's people like us that are a few years in. It's really a place that you can go and develop, and you can grow as a person and as a professional. So I would recommend it to anybody. And I know that people will be watching this that have studied or are still studying, that think, no, I'm doing this because I want to be a dietitian, but actually don't write off teaching the future dietitians either.
Absolutely. That's such good advice, Fran. And thank you so much for joining the live chat today, especially during Dietitians Week. Happy Dietitians Week.
Happy Dietitians Week.
Have you got anything else lined up for Dietitians Week?
Well, I've been lucky enough to be on annual leave for the last 2 days, so I will partake in activities tomorrow and Thursday. We're doing, in my locum job, we're doing a nutrition ward round, so like a trolley with nourishing snacks and things like that, and raising the profile of our must screening tool. So that's the plan for tomorrow. And then at the end of this week, I'm on annual leave again because it's my birthday. So
happy birthday, Fran.
Thank
That's
you.
very
Thank
nice.
you.
And yes, so tomorrow evening we will have another chat. So we'll look at dietitians who are doing a PhD. So we will have 3 guests with us, and Mike Patterson, Alfie Thing, and Joanne and Tattersall. So they are at different stage of their PhD. So we will have a look at their journey. And everybody, please join us tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. And so thank you everybody for joining today. And thank you so much, Fran, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye.